Welcome to Behind the Needle. Today we're here with Natalie Uden. We're in Tucson, Arizona. We drove out here. She's like, we were talking, we were eating lunch before this. She's like, Mike, why did you come out here? And I was like, to interview you. She was like, oh. I was like, yeah, we're here to do these interviews. So Tucson is about an hour and a half south of Phoenix, where I live, and I hadn't been out here in a while, and had never done any interviews out here. So thank you for being here.
Oh, thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, I'm very excited to talk to you about Oro Valley Aesthetics. That's your med spa, and kind of how you got started and what you're doing now. I'll ask some rapid fire questions too at the end to keep you on your toes. But this is Natalie's first podcast interview, so I'm sure you're a little bit nervous. You don't need. Are you nervous or no?
Well, yeah. I mean,
yeah.
Anytime.
Well, hopefully the fire. If
It's
you're
cozy.
watching this, you'll see. But we have a TV here with a burning, crackling fire. But we turned the sound off so that it wouldn't interfere with the podcast. But yeah, it's chill. We're chill. So you're from Tucson.
I am from Tucson.
Born and raised.
I moved here when I was 5, so all I can remember. So it's essentially from Tucson.
I like to know kind of how you got into aesthetics. It's interesting to me because as we were talking, you were saying that you were an NP and you were working at the Minute Clinic, and then you were doing oncology, and you've done all these other things. And so how did you land and decide on aesthetics? Because a lot of people in the medical field, a PA, NP, nurse, etc., I feel like they want to get in aesthetics, but they feel like it's very far away, or they don't really know like the best way to start.
Yeah.
So can you walk me through a little bit how you came to be in this space?
So I had always kind of had an interest in it.
When did you first hear about it too?
Oh gosh.
Like Botox was probably the first thing that you heard of, right?
It's funny because in, nursing school, I didn't really know about Botox, filler, or anything like that. Because I graduated nursing school in 2010. So gosh, 14 years ago.
Yeah. Almost 15. Not to age you at all. I'm just like, we're almost at 2025 now.
I know. Yeah. So I didn't really know much about it, right? And that's nothing I ever thought I was ever going to do.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, I want to do peds, or I want to do oncology or something along that line. And I, Instagram became, a thing. Originally it was like, Facebook for college students. And
do you still have Facebook?
I do. Well, for the business.
Do you ever, not a personal one?
I do, only because like my neighborhood has like a Facebook page, but it's mainly just people ranting about stuff.
Yeah, that's what it's good for now. Do you ever go back and look at your old posts like from college and stuff?
Well, it's all private because I don't need people seeing that. It's just pretty much as soon as it became like that they invited it, because it used to be just you had to have a college email to have it, and that's like when I signed up, it was only a couple of years old, right? And then once they kind of changed it to becoming more public,
like, nope.
Then I was like, only me, only me, only me, only me for like all settings. So you really can't see anything on like my personal page.
It's probably for the better.
Yes.
I look back at my old stuff, and thankfully I didn't really like write big long captions.
Oh no.
I am just so
it's just
mortified.
Like the status. It's like Natalie Uden is doing, feels this way. You're just like, oh man.
So anyways, cringe. You finished and you hadn't really ever heard of aesthetics. And then how were you first introduced to it?
So Instagram, you following people. I got on the Instagram train because my younger sister was still, cool and in college. I was like, oh, what's this Instagram thing? And
what's this Instagram?
Yeah, exactly.
Instantgram.
Yeah, pretty much. And then so, things are what suggested to you follow, so I was following, I think, like other nurses initially for a long time. And then I try to think back of like what first kind of like got my attention was I followed Erica Berry for a long time. Yeah. Like back when I was even like a nurse before NP school, and because she's been doing this for a long time, like before she had her own practice. And I was like, that's cool. I didn't realize you could like do all these things. And so I followed her for a long time. And as an NP, I worked as as an NP, I worked in oncology. I worked in allergy and asthma for a couple of years, and then moved to like an urgent care, setting with Minute Clinic to have more flexibility with schedule for kids, but that's when I finally was like, okay, I think I have time where if I wanted to start looking into like, how could I do this? Like, what do courses, like, how would I even do it? Right. Okay. You take a training course, look at that. But
you don't just jump into things, do you?
No.
No. I can tell. And that's not a bad thing. I actually think it's really good. There's a lot of people that I'll hear giving business advice that just say, go all in on one thing and one thing only. But the challenge with that, if you're not mentally prepared to do that and you're not prepared for the volatility of the business and like the whiplash back and forth and how that feels, or if you don't like that,
right,
it will ruin you. It'll literally break you in half. And I asked that because I can tell from the way that we're talking, like you did all these different things, and then I'm not trying to tell your story for you.
No.
You ended up in a salon suite, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you were there for a while, and then you brought in someone to help on the off days when you were not working as an aesthetic nurse. And like the progression of it, it's similar to how the first time we connected was almost 2 years ago.
Yeah.
So this is I'm piecing it together. I'm like, oh, okay, well, this is why. This is what's happening here. It makes sense now. So you started following Erica Berry, maybe saw other people after that and started being like, wow, this is really cool. It's medicine, but it's like aesthetic medicine.
Yeah.
And then got more and more interested in it and then started doing it part-time.
Mm-hmm.
And then when did you know, like, okay, I feel like I'm ready to actually go and do this full-time? And how long has it been since you've been doing it full-time?
Full-time? So I quit my job with Minute Clinic when we opened up the new space in February.
Okay.
2022. I
was just literally that whole time.
Yeah. Wow. I was busy. It was, well, I mean, labor of love, right? Like it was something, because I knew I wanted to do that. I really enjoyed it. I really like the, like science aspect behind everything, the medical aspect behind everything that I was doing. And I was very invested in what I had already put into it and the patients, and I enjoyed what I was doing. And so from starting so small to then, doing the salon suite with just my RN and I, and then getting busier and realized, okay, I need another space, and then jumping to this, like that whole time, I was having to still sustain myself with growing the business. Right? And so I was essentially investing all of our like business proceeds back into the business that whole year and utilizing my NP job to support myself is how I grew the business.
Man, that is so awesome because
so it was busy.
That it is. That really is how it's done. Mm-hmm. If you want to do it right, unless you like have a huge pile of cash lying around, right? You have to stretch yourself a little bit. Yeah. It reminds me, so I used to work in a grocery store. Right out of college, I was an assistant store manager, and I was working probably about 60 hours a week. And I was exhausted. Yeah. I was exhausted. But I knew that I needed to and could do more for my family, for myself. And so I taught myself influencer marketing. This was in 2012. So Instantgram, when you were discovering Instantgram, I was learning how to do it with influencers. Mm-hmm. And then on top of that, I was doing another 20 hours a week. So I was working like 80 hours a week before I was ready to take the jump for a couple of months into doing this full time as the first employee of this little startup. And it was very scary. Did you feel scared when you left your NP job at the Minute Clinic?
Oh yeah. Terrified.
Do you still, you probably do, but maybe you don't, but do you still think like, well, if it all fails, I can still go back?
Yes. I'm like, at least I can be an NP or a nurse, like somewhere if somebody wants to hire me at this point. I don't, like it's at least, the nice thing is you have like that foundational knowledge, and I have a license to be a nurse, be an NP. Like I can do something if
Yeah.
all else fails and nobody wants to see me ever again. But
and this isn't to say that that's going to happen.
No.
It's a natural thing that you're thinking.
It's just a natural fear.
Yeah. Because I don't feel that way anymore about my business.
Yeah.
Granted, it's been over 7 years since I've been on my own.
Yeah.
Eventually it does leave. Eventually you will wake up, Natalie, and you will be like, oh yeah, I used to wonder if I was going to make it or not, or if people actually really cared and wanted to see me. They do. And I think that that's the message that I want to share for everyone else listening too, is like, unless your customer service is terrible,
right?
Unless you really aren't a good provider, people do want to come to you. It's why they come back.
Yeah.
And so it's okay that imposter syndrome is there.
Yeah.
But you have to choose not to listen to it.
Yeah.
Because you're not going to fail. As long as you do the things that you know to do in order to help your patients look and feel their best.
Yeah.
You're not going to fail. They're not going to leave you. So, and look and feel, right? Let's talk about the new things that you've started to offer at Oro Valley, because you opened in February. You were doing weight loss. You still are. But now there's more services being offered there. Tell me some of the newer things that people that are already customers might not know yet that you're offering there.
Yeah, so we're just starting now to offer bioidentical hormone therapy. So
for the people who are like, what is bioidentical hormone therapy? I know what it is, but these are things like testosterone replacement therapy.
Yes, so testosterone, progesterone, estrogen, utilizing more natural-based versus coming, the old original based hormone therapies came, like the most common ones were from mare or female horse urine, right? And they don't quite match our natural hormones. And so
that's good to know that horse urine doesn't match our natural hormones.
Not quite, but that's what they had.
No, that's what they had,
and it helped
worked.
People for a long time, and it was mainly used for postmenopausal women. But now we bioidentical comes typically from plant-based sources, but when they are able to synthesize, use that and make that in a lab, the chemical structure matches ours. And so when we can use that in ourselves, we're going to have a better response to it. Not to say that, like, if you get that from your, OBGYN, it's a bad thing, but most people tend to tolerate the bioidentical forms better. And you can get the bioidentical forms at your regular pharmacy too, and also at compounding pharmacy. So we use both.
Yeah.
But it's just nice you can use it not only in postmenopausal women, but also in perimenopausal and just anyone who is.
Yeah. Tell me the symptoms. Like what symptoms does it, somebody's like, okay, I've heard of bioidentical hormones before. I'm glad I don't have to drink the horse urine anymore. I'm super grateful that this is happening. But like, is this for me? Or if they've never even heard of it, like what symptoms are people having that could be potentially a candidate that should talk to you about this?
Well, it's one of the big reasons I wanted to bring it in is because, I've been doing weight loss in my practice since before we were in the new office, right? Yeah. And that was a big thing that kind of grew the practice. And now it's nice because patients would kind of cross between the aesthetics and the weight loss and back and forth. But now weight gain or difficulty losing weight was a big part for the perimenopausal and the postmenopausal patients that we had with hormone issues, right? Okay. But then also patients, I think, are having symptoms that they don't realize, because people, I think if you think of issues with hormones is you think, okay, weight, or you think of
fogginess,
libido. Yeah. Like they think of like the more obvious things, but so fatigue, fogginess, irritability, anxiety, depression. So your hormones make your body function. And so if you're either unbalanced or deficient in your hormones, you're going to feel like crap, basically. And so there's a lot of these symptoms that people don't realize, and they can happen even in your mid-30s sometimes for women. And so
wow, that early.
Yeah, so a lot of time, well, and in those women it's not so much of like that deficiency that the postmenopausal women are having because they're not necessarily producing them as much. It's in women who are younger, like even myself, is more so what they'll call estrogen dominance, where they're just progesterone is starting to go down, and so they're having more feelings of like anxiety, difficulty sleeping, kind of like a brain fog, and so or they might notice more sort of like premenstrual disorder type symptoms, like they did maybe when they were a teen, of like, I'm so angry, like leading up to my period. Like, why am I so upset? Like, my husband's breathing is like bothering me. I'm going to smack him because he won't stop chewing so loudly, like that kind of thing. And
Ashley, if you're watching this, Ashley Lemieux, you may need bioidentical hormone replacement therapy.
You chew too loud, huh?
Well, it's funny. She is self-diagnosed misophonia.
Oh, yeah.
And which is noises.
Okay.
Just like crinkling, chewing, breathing, drinking.
Okay.
Sometimes me talking. No, not usually. Not usually. I'm just joking. But it bothers her. But it only bothers her when she's not doing it too. So like we could be eating dinner, we'll be eating dinner, and the second she stops eating, she hears it. Yeah. It's fascinating. I wonder though if there's a hormone imbalance there. It would be interesting, right?
Is it more recent for her, or has it been all like since she was younger? Because you guys have been together for a long time.
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm not sure. I'll need to look into it. But let's just say she wants to do this. I feel like a primary care physician is the first step that most people go to. Be like, doc, I feel really this. I feel really that. Would it be a better idea to come to you to get hormones checked? Like, is it the same thing?
So it depends. If your primary care is more into, say, like integrative or wellness, they tend to. But what, unfortunately, in our kind of society and culture and how healthcare has gone is that provider visits with your primary or, who you're going with your insurance tend to be very short. And I don't know if you've noticed, like you go and it's like,
I honestly haven't been to a doctor in a really long time, thankfully.
Okay.
But I've
should, like, at least for your like annual wellness visit.
I've gotten labs.
Okay. Do you get a physical every year?
I do, starting in 2025, actually. Yes.
Okay. But I mean, a lot of times, like, these things aren't covered. It's like they can only cover so much, or maybe insurance isn't covering certain things, or they'll check you, you tell them like, I'm fatigued or I'm having anxiety. A lot of times, especially in more like younger females or women in their like 30s, 40s, early 50s, they'll tell them about like brain fog or anxiety or depression, and they're put on anti-anxiety or antidepressants when hormones would help these symptoms, and they might not need those other drugs.
If somebody's on antidepressants or anti-anxiety, could they still get their labs checked with you and it wouldn't affect the hormone levels?
Right.
Man, I feel like this is a really important thing. I feel it's really important because to me, the challenging part is when you feel like you have these symptoms, you don't really know what to do first.
Right.
So I feel like this is a really important episode, honestly. If you have any of these symptoms, don't just go to a PCP, a primary care physician. Also go to an NP like Natalie. And if you're here, go to her so that she can get you your labs tested and then go over the results with you and make recommendations and suggestions. But what are people saying to you that go through and get the hormone replacement?
So most people, if it truly is a hormone issue, because a lot of times women will come, say they had gone to their primary care and had other labs checked, like, they thought they're tired, their vitamin levels are fine, like you're not B12 deficient, their iron levels are fine, or their thyroid's fine, or different things that you would typically check in somebody who tells you you're tired, or maybe they've gotten on an antidepressant or anti-anxiety and they're still having these issues. And so they're like, you know what, I heard about this, or I'm going to try this, I want to check into it. Or they see us for aesthetics or weight loss, and then we decide, okay, well, let's check this, because what you're talking about sounds like this. Let's see. And then check their labs, review them. Once you start on hormones, whichever usually we'll start like one at a time and then try to implement multiple so we can see how you tolerate things. But once they start on it, it's usually within a week or so that you're going to feel a difference. Like I have another NP who's with me too, this is a big passion of hers is that she does hormones. And so I went over, my issues with her and kind of what I had been through and so started me on some progesterone because estrogen dominance was kind of what I was dealing with. And I told her like when I was having symptoms and kind of that I was having difficulty like sleeping, anxiety, and obviously running a business is a lot of these things are going to, so it's like, this is like, is it this, is that? But within a week of starting the progesterone every night, I felt like I was sleeping better. I was handling stress better. I just wasn't as anxious about things. Like I just handled situations better. And then I
asked you to be on the podcast and then the anxiety came back.
But I feel like I felt like leading up to it, I would have been a lot more stressed out and just like so much more nervous about it. I was like, it's coming up. I guess it'll be fine.
Let's do it.
But it's just, I think it made such a difference in how I felt. But a lot of these changes didn't happen until after I had my son. That's when I saw a lot of these hormonal shifts. And I think that's when a lot of people will see these things is after they have kids or again, like in their, I'm going to be 37 this month. So it's like
when's your birthday?
December 30th.
All right.
Like Christmas.
I'll remember it. I'll remember it. So you were like, well, I am getting older. I'm in my late 30s now. Mm-hmm. Maybe this would be, so you had that conversation. And what's striking to me is that, when you go look at the mirror, you don't notice the 5 to 10 to 20 pound gain or loss over time, because generally it takes a long time for that to happen. Right. You'll notice a haircut. But even then, like, we don't notice stuff that quickly happening to us. The fact that you were able to tell and notice a huge difference in a week to a week and a half is striking to me. Yeah. Because that is a very fast change. Yeah. And there's a lot of people, like, if you remember when we went to the Skin Better conference, when we saw each other last over the summer for Alexis in wherever that was, Chandler, there was the educator, Michelle. She was talking about like before using the product, 4 weeks, 8 weeks, 12 weeks after. Yeah. Do you remember this? The person after the 12 weeks of using this product said, it's kind of crazy. Like I didn't really notice or see much of a difference at all. Almost disappointed probably. Right. But then they showed her the before and after photos and she was shocked. Right. And I think that that's generally what I'm trying to get at here is what happens. We go through all these things and we just don't realize that this is actually taking place. But for you, a week is phenomenally fast. Yeah. So I would encourage anybody to go to at least an NP, PA, whoever can do this, and go get labs tested. I think that the biggest challenge is when you feel like this, there's so many systems in our bodies that it makes it difficult to know what's going on.
Right. And that's the key is, going to see somebody who is able to evaluate you thoroughly and know, and check labs and see, okay, is there something else medically going on that it's not your hormones or it is your hormones? Should we try this safely or should you be evaluated for something else? Yeah. Because knowing where to look and how to find what we're looking for, you want a provider who has experience in the medical field, who knows what they're doing. Yeah.
Yep. Let's shift gears.
Okay.
Who is the best person in the Tucson area if somebody wants to go learn how to get in the aesthetic space, be mentored? Who's the best one in the Tucson area and why is it you?
Oh, God. I was like, how am I going to answer that question right before you said that?
It's you though.
Oh, gosh.
It's you. And let me tell you why.
Okay.
Because I don't believe that you're going to toot your horn.
Yeah. That's
so
true.
I'm going to do it for you here.
Okay.
It feels like every week or every time you post stories, which means that you might not be posting enough. And you know that
I know I'm not.
I'm going to say,
and that's part of the not tooting the horn thing.
I'm going to say you definitely do want to make sure you're posting.
Yeah.
But it feels like you're doing a lot of education. You are very learned. Like you have, who was it that you just were taught by recently, right? Emily
Matheson. She's a trainer for Revance.
Yeah. And you've how many trainings have you attended and been trained this year alone, would you say?
Oh God, you know what? It's funny. I was thinking about that the other day because when we did that one, I was like, you know what? I wonder if I could even add up the amount that I
like, how much have I spent this year on on education?
Yeah.
How much?
How much?
Yeah, how much? If you know, and if you're cool with sharing, I think
it's fine. I think it's important for people to realize that this field is, I mean, it's funny because I spent a majority of my career in different parts of the medical field, right?
Yeah.
And the aesthetic field is much more expensive for education. But
much more expensive.
Oh yeah, because I would go to, usually if I had a job as an NP somewhere, usually would have like a CME allowance of $1,500 to $2,500 a year to do conferences, and you could go to a conference and do a whole thing. But a conference would be like like $500, for an NP. Like it's not that much compared to like what we're paying now. So you're paying a few grand for like a conference, depending what it is, anywhere from $1,000 to a few grand. Right, but now like you're doing hands-on. You're doing hands-on training. Yes, cadaver labs are what. So I've done a couple of cadaver labs now, and then just private trainings themselves, can be anywhere from a couple thousand, 5,000. Yeah, I mean, so they vary so much. Conferences are going to be anywhere from 1,000 to 4,000, and it's just, so it adds up quickly.
Yeah.
But then there's also like digital, right? Like you want to have subscriptions to different like journals, right? So you can learn what's going on and read studies. And then you like Patreons are helpful too, so you can learn from other people in the industry, like how they're running their businesses or protocols, and they'll share journals and videos. So it's just, there's many avenues, I guess, that I seek for education because I want to know what's happening. But up in the tens of thousands. But it's important. I mean, and
it's everything.
You can't not do it.
No.
But the amount that I learn from each one just makes me better each time.
Yeah.
So it's worth it.
It also develops a relationship with the trainer.
Yeah.
Which is very valuable too.
Right.
To be able to, I'm sure that most of the people who've trained you would allow you to like shoot them a message or call them and ask them some type of question, and having that availability of those people is incredibly important and valuable, because weird stuff can happen in this industry. It's medicine.
Right.
So tens of thousands. It's a good thing though, because if I'm going to go get my face poked by someone's needle, I'm going to make sure that they know exactly what they're doing.
Right.
And that they didn't just like watch a YouTube video or self-experiment and figure this stuff out. So I would for sure come to you if I were closer.
If it wasn't an hour and a half,
wasn't afraid of getting injected. I would come to you.
Right? Yeah.
Because of just like the sheer amount of knowledge that I've seen you getting.
Yeah.
Do you offer mentorships or trainings, or is that coming in 2025?
I don't currently, but that's something that I've definitely thought of and that I want to. It's just
I was setting her up there.
I know.
We talked about this before. I think she should do it. She's brilliant.
Thank you.
But what's the holdup?
It's that imposter syndrome we talk about. I mean, it's funny. Well, I told you because I went from being like going these other fields that I feel more of like, you work as a nurse and an NP in these other fields, and you become like an expert or advanced in, oncology as an NP, or then in allergy and asthma, immunology. And then I'm in urgent care and I'm dealing, but then we also treat, chronic conditions, I'm doing all these things, and I become a preceptor, or I'm educating other nurses or NPs in those fields, and then move to this field, and it's like all of a sudden you're a beginner
like
again.
A newbie again.
And you're like, okay. But I've always enjoyed educating other people and helping other people. And I feel like teaching just comes naturally to me because I'm an over explainer.
Yeah.
And I think you could ask any of my patients that I just kind of like talked. And but it's natural. It's funny because
they're like, cool. Go ahead.
But I like to talk. And I feel like, because I would want to know, what's happening with me, what I'm receiving, what you're going to do to me. And so I like to talk about how, like, not only what they're getting, but how it works and why they would want to get it. And ask if they have questions. And it kind of comes naturally based on my style of teaching. Just sort of comes naturally to me. And my husband says the same thing. My husband's an educator. And so he says the same thing. It's just my teaching style is natural to me because I like to talk, but I don't know. I think it's because I like to explain.
Yeah. I think that as soon as you are ready to open up those mentorship packages, if you've listened to this whole episode, you know that you're not going to do that until you're actually ready to do it. So the day that you announce it, I will be cheering out loud.
Well, thanks.
And I think that it will be a very exciting day. You got to set the goal. So we're going to put you on the spot here. Okay. What is the target date for when the mentorship launches?
I'll give myself some time, maybe like summer.
That's a good
2025.
Time. That's a good time because people are on vacation or they're doing things, but they're still thinking like, what am I going to do for quarters 3 and 4?
Right.
Okay. So July 1st.
Oh gosh. Okay.
I'm going to send you a later text right now.
You could do that?
Yes, you can.
Oh gosh.
I'm gonna do it right now.
How do you do
it? It's a new feature
on iPhone.
So, Natalie,
you think I would
we
know
are
how
sitting
to do that?
In your podcast interview right now, and you just told me.
Oh no!
You're taking a drink. Are you nervous now? And you just told me you'll have your mentorship program set up by today. I'm not saying what I'm saying now out loud.
Okay.
Send later.
I
can only do it. I can only do it up to December 23rd.
Oh shoot. Oh.
I'm gonna send it as an email.
There you go.
I'll write myself a reminder to send this to you as an email.
Perfect.
But that's the thing too. It's like, did you notice that you're like, okay, well now I got to think of what's in it.
See?
You do, but this is like my challenge though to you. I want you to think. It's done. I'm gonna fill that email out for you.
Okay.
This is the first step. What do you want it to be?
Mm-hmm.
And then you think, okay, first step. What do you want to be? Step A.
Mm-hmm.
What are people asking you questions about?
Okay.
What have you learned?
Yeah.
What is necessary in order to become a better injector?
Yeah.
It's not all just like the technique of injecting.
Mm-hmm.
How is your bedside manner? How are you taking care of customers before, during, and after they come in?
Mm-hmm.
What's your communication like with them? After, are they able to text you? Not. Do you have an assistant do all that? What are you giving them as they leave, right? Like all these things are involved because there's a lot of people that want to get in the space.
Yeah.
And there's so many people that are interested in getting aesthetic treatments now.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of what do you feel like is the most important thing? Because it's not just technique. It's running the business.
Right.
That people want to know. That a lot of, like, there's a lot of education out there for how to inject.
Right.
But there's not as much education at all about the business side of it.
Right.
Which is a huge opportunity. So maybe think about that too.
Okay. That's a good word.
Yeah. Okay. Almost done. A couple rapid fire questions.
Okay.
What's your favorite treatment to receive?
Ooh. To receive?
Yes.
Result wise?
Yeah, like if you could only choose one more treatment for the rest of forever. One or two.
Okay.
I'll let you pick 2 because one's hard.
Yeah. Okay. Well, definitely Sculptra.
Okay.
Because that was like...
And what is Sculptra?
Sculptra is an injectable biostimulator. So
what's a biostimulator do?
It stimulates collagen production,
which keeps your face intact and not saggy.
Exactly.
And it keeps it tight.
So it's going to keep your skin more. It's going to help skin quality and the more like overall volume production, but not necessarily like spa volume treatment. And it's going to stick with you. So you have like longer lasting results. So Sculptra was
longer than
like
filler,
the first,
you mean?
Yeah.
Than a dermal
so
filler,
Sculptra was one of the, I mean, I've had Botox for a long time because I get it for migraines too, but Sculptra was, besides Botox, Sculptra was the first treatment I had.
Okay.
Like, because I felt like I was just looking old after having my son, like being postpartum. And I was like, oh my gosh. And it made the biggest difference in just making me feel like I didn't look so tired anymore. And it's just very natural looking and it just helps skin quality too. And like if you're getting kind of like crepiness or a little sagging. So I show people my Sculptra results all the time, and it's nice because you can use it any age range. But it's kind of like if there's one treatment that's like the fountain of youth kind of thing, I think Sculptra is your like.
So that is the number one. But what would a second one be?
Oh gosh.
Maybe we just leave it at one.
Botox. Because I mean, how can you not go without Botox? And then I would just have migraines up the wazoo if I didn't have my Botox. So
How many places can you inject Botox? Like, how many uses for it are there that you know of?
Oh, you know what? That's a good quiz. But because there's so many medical indications now, and then aesthetics. I mean, so it was just like the 3, but then they recently got the platysmal band indication too. But then, there's migraines. There's like cervical dystonia, which I get.
Wow.
And then there's a lot of off-label indications, and then they'll use it even in children who get spasticity and cerebral palsy.
Wow.
So a lot, like when people are really nervous about Botox, I explain to them like it has a lot of studies. It's a lot of medical indications. Children can even get Botox, and the doses that they use for medical indications are much higher than we use.
Oh, higher.
Or much higher than we use in the aesthetic indication world. So like the like on-label dosing for say frown lines, forehead, crow's feet is 64 units, but the on-label dosing that you would get for migraine protocol is 150 every 12 weeks. So so when people are like, oh, that seems like a lot, I'm like, no, it's not. And then so I mean it just kind of helps ease that comfort of like, this has been studied at much higher doses
so
for
just
medical
calm down.
purposes. No, not like
calm
that,
down,
but
Mike.
It's like
don't freak out about it.
But to let them know that it's like, I mean, some people you can give up to 400 every 12 weeks for medical purposes.
Yeah.
So.
Wow. Last question.
Okay.
This is a deeper one.
Oh gosh.
Not bad. Knowing what you've done now. Going back to scared Natalie. Before you made the leap and went out on your own, what would you tell her?
I would tell her that it was eventually going to be okay, and as much doubt as you had, and as busy as you might be, and you're gonna have to work every Saturday for a whole year, but you eventually get to take your kid to school every single day.
That's beautiful.
Which I didn't think I would get to do, working. Sorry. I mean, my background, like with the IVF and all that, and I know your background, and so he's very special to me, and I went into this thinking I would have a lot more time to spend with him, and for a little bit I didn't, and so I questioned it for a long time. I was like, is this worth it? Like, I'm spending, like, I don't have as much time with him, like, why did I do this? But I feel like I can't give up because I've already invested so much. And so it was, it was hard because I was working 2 jobs pretty much for a long time. But now, like, even though I still work a good amount now, but I have the freedom of my time. Whereas before, I was working every other weekend as an NP in my job, and then I was still working in the aesthetic business, working every Saturday so that was every Saturday. And so now being able to have the control over my schedule getting to go to whatever events of his I want to go to, taking him to school every day. Like, I would never have been able to do that. So,
man, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
I think anytime you feel that again, scared to take the next step, just remember what future Natalie is going to come back and tell you.
Yeah.
Because you're going to do it. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
You're going to do it.
Yeah.
And that's the important thing to remember.
Yeah.
You just figure out how.
Yeah.
You just figure out how. You're not going back to the minute clinic. Sorry, minute clinic.
You're
not getting her back.
I did like that job a lot. I had a really great boss.
It's good that you liked it.
They were sad I left and I was sad, but
you're not getting her back, guys.
I know.
You're just not. She's taken by her business now. But
yeah.
Super excited for you and everything that you're going to be launching, that you have launched. Your year anniversary is coming up in a few months.
Yeah.
And thank you for being here today and sharing so openly with us about the journey and the heart, the thought process, the time, and really like the care that you've taken as you've made these decisions. I think it's a really admirable thing that even though you don't jump in, which is what people tell you to do, you don't pay attention to what they're telling you to do, and you follow what you feel like is right for timing and for what you bring into the practice, what you don't, how you educate yourself, and who you bring into. I think it's fantastic to watch, and I'm very excited for you and to be able to continue to watch how it grows.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for being here today, and thank you for watching or listening, and take care of yourself, everybody.